back at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, the Strip out here, and I'm doing one of my Nitro-Tech Talk videos, but we're doing it a little different today because I'm not at home in my shop like I normally am. I'm here at the racetrack. We're concluding the event here at Vegas, and we're headed to Pomona. So we're doing a bunch of between race maintenance, and I thought, well, holy crap, Batman, you guys may want to see some of the technical crap we do. That would be a top fuel car running. 3708. Wow, 3.704, That's haul in the mail really fast. Okay, so we're going to do some maintenance. I've got some stuff I want to show you. The first thing I'm going to show you requires that our incredibly loud air compressor is turned on. So I'm going to do that first so I can get that thing shut off and move on to stuff so you can hear us better. To do that, we're going to top end guy John. So what we've done is we pulled the rack out, so the rods and pistons came out, and we maintenance the sleeves like I showed you back at the shop with that ball hone. That's already done. I'll show you inside on one of the rods and pistons I'm working on, but I'm real happy with how they all look, except for one of them. So I'm looking for anything on, so I've got that all cleaned up, but what I'm looking for, let me show you one that has a little bit. So that's called Black Death, because it's black and it sucks and it's like death. So what happens is the piston's aluminum, the sleeve is ductile iron, and if the fuel curve isn't perfect, then if it's a little lean anywhere, the piston gets hot and aluminum grows quicker than the ductile iron, so it swells in the bore and takes up the available room a little too much and starts to gall. So that's not bad though. The rest of them are awesome, and I've got one I had to replace. So we pull the rack out. Well, as we do that, I'm telling you too much technical detail here, tuning stuff. To come to Las Vegas, you're running high desert, so you're in altitude. This is really good air for Vegas, and we're over 3,000, 3,500 feet. Density altitude, correct altitude. As a reference, at Woodburn, it's normal for us to be 1,000 or 1,200 foot. Big difference. That's the altitude that the motor thinks it's running at. So it's harder to make power since we don't have the belt-driven intake manifold, i.e. a supercharger. So we don't have that. So what we do is increase the static compression. We thin the head gaskets out. When we do that, there are limits. The highest RPM this injected nitro motor sees is on the burnout. Well, if we've got it turned up a little too much, the motor gets over 7,000 RPM, which I don't want to see. What we end up with is the exhaust valve will smack the piston. And the piston on what we call the cheeks, I don't even know why you call it that. Garrett just started calling it that, so I started calling it that. Anyway, the piston will hit the cylinder head, and we're going to show you that in just a minute. So once I see that, holy crap, Batman, that thing has touched, what do we get concerned about? Well, if it hits very damn hard, it's going to bend the valve. So if it bends the valve, then it's not going to seal up. You'll lose cylinder pressure. That's bad. So that brings me to top end guy John. I've shown you this tester at the shop. Here we are at the track in real life action. So we're looking at the cylinder head, and the combustion chambers look quite good. In other words, there's no fuzzing in between the spark plug holes. You do that when you melt the aluminum because you get it too hot because it's too lean. So I had plenty of fuel in it. We didn't hurt it that way. Top fuel cars. So now what we're looking for is where did the piston touch on those cheeks? So I can see where that touched. But it's not a big deal. It can just kiss it. What you don't want to do is have the piston lift the head up off the deck. That's bad. So we're just kissing it. But I know that those exhaust valves touched. So concerned about bending. Well, the cool deal is we have a way to test that, and John's going to show you what we do. So John, that's our sucker test. Show me what you do.
Put it on here.
So we've got the air compressor on through this tool. He mates that up, and that's pulling a vacuum. So we've got about 20 inches of vacuum, and I don't know if you can see that gauge, but it's holding that. It just barely falls off. So it's sealed. That's good news. So we're happy with that worked. Okay, so that gives you an example of how we test those heads. He's done it with both heads. You can go ahead and kill that.
Yep.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, so now back to the motor. One of the cool things about being out here is it's not just us. In other words, we get friends and family and folks that come by. It's a hoot. We get to meet a lot of people. If you follow me, you should know that I made a unique video about a month ago where we had heard there was a young man who lived in Las Vegas, had worked on a team, and had some challenging times and kind of had a bad taste in his mouth. And I felt bad for him. So I made the first video I've ever made. It was for one person on the planet, and that was for Anthony. Anthony's here today, and he's been helping us all weekend. He's done a remarkable job. He's done a really good job. That's Anthony. Now, I told you that story to tell you this story. Now we're maintaining this thing. We got all this stuff out, and who shows up but the guy on the other side of the camera. Tell me who that is.
Macon Jackson.
And who's Macon to you?
He's like an uncle to me.
And what did he help you do?
He got me started working on these cars.
And
got me a job with Terry Haddock.
And what about driving?
Got me licensed.
Hey, thank you. God, just to drag it out of you, but so, God, you suck at this part. Okay, so well, we'll get you there. It's okay. I teach him bottom end. I teach him how to talk on camera. It's all part of the package. No extra charge. All right. So he got licensed in a junior, and that's how they're out at Bakersfield, is what I'm told, and how you met up with Trevor somehow. I don't know how it all worked, but don't really care. But that's how it worked. So now Macon shows up and goes, hey, that's cool. I get to meet you. I've heard about you. I get to meet you. And now, as he shows up, he's got another young lady with him. Top field card. And she shows up, and we, at the time, we're taking the head nuts off with the biggest impact gun we have, which is right behind Derb's. And she comes up and she says, hey, can I help do that? I thought she was full of crap, like just being a smart ass, to be honest with you. And so I said, yeah, sure, of course. So she comes around, okay, I'll do it. So we give her that, what's your name, dear?
Anna.
Gun, young lady. Okay, show that gun. That's the biggest impact gun we have. It will break loose the head nuts that are torqued to 170 foot-pounds, and it'll break them loose. So she comes over here, and I said, if you're serious, go ahead. And she broke those nuts loose, bam, 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 got them loose. And I'm just stunned. And then I found out the deal breaker for me, which was, how many times have you been to the drag strip? And that includes this one. So this is her first time to a race. So I thought, she must work on another car somewhere. No. She's never been to a track before until today. Oh my God, that's cool. So we're honored to have your help. Thank you, dear.
Thank you.
After she pulled the head nuts off, as you back those out, it can pull the head studs with it. So we gave her a gun and said, pound those head studs back in, and she did well. So we can sign you up for Pomona and next year as well if you want to work on this thing. Just kidding. Okay. So there's your gun. All right, Anna, thank you very much. And I'm going to move on now. Remember, you're still Mike, so if you say something foul about me after I leave, we will know. All right. So I'm going to show you now the maintenance that we're doing on the motor. So I've already honed the sleeves with that ball hone, which is inside. I pulled the rack out, and I'm looking at the rings and the pistons, and I've got one that was fighting me. It's inside. Come on inside, and I'll show you what we're doing. So come on in the trailer, right over the top of the car. That's cool, that's cool. Come on in. Past our air conditioning straps. Try to keep cold air in. All right, so we've got a big mess in here. Sorry for the big mess. We're trying to fly and get this done. So what I've got now is the rod and piston that came out of it, and the piston is this one. Yep. And so we pull it out and we go, oh yeah, baby, that's bitchin'. Yeah, that's bitchin', but that's not. So that Black Death is just too much. Not only can you catch your fingernail on it, but it's abrasive. Can I clean it? Yeah, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to swap it out and put another piston on. The other challenge is if it's bad enough to do that, then that means that the rings took it in the shorts too. So if it does that, it's going to wipe out the rings. That sucks. So I lose a ring pack. I've got more. I just don't want to have put ones on. So I'm going to grab rings and put this thing together, and then it's going to go right back together, and we should be good to go. So that's what we're doing. If you want to hang out and watch me put rings on, you may. This part's maybe boring, I don't know, but depends how fast I can find rings, I guess. But you've got to carry spare everything. So we've got spare sleeves that we could drop in, race ready, spare head studs, spare everything. Every time you find you need something that you don't have, then you got to find a way to get it. There's some oil rings that I'm going to need, and I need to find rings for the top groove and the second set. So there's an upper Dykes ring right there. Okay, oil rings right there, and need my second ring, and there they are. Actually running low on rings, which kind of stinks. Get my old guy glasses on here, and see which one I want to use. Get it in the light, I can't see a darn thing. Okay, so that is a good ring. Now, let me see if I don't know if I can show this on camera or not. Okay, for a second ring, what we're looking at is it's tapered and all the surface is black when you get it, but because it's tapered, it wears into the cylinder wall. So I don't even get that. Yeah, okay. So you got the top part that's got the black still in it, and then the silver part on the bottom. As it wears, that black wears up until it's all silver, and then it's done. So that's how we determine whether a number 2 ring is any good or not. So there's that. Here's our upper ring. The top ring is a Dykes tool steel ring. It's just really, really hard. So we've got that. Now I need my oil rings. And with oil rings, you're going to have your expander and your scrapers. The top 2 rings are gapped. I won't tell you to what, but I'll tell you they are gapped. The bottom rings, oil rings, are not gapped, unless we've got a new person and we tell them ask them if they gap the oil rings, because we think it's hilarious when they don't know that you don't actually gap those. So we make them think they screwed up. That's kind of funny. All right, now what I need now is assembly lube. Here's our chemical cabinet, some assembly lube, and this is how I put it together. So all my pieces. So I'm going to take my assembly lube, put a little in here inside the small end of the rod, inside, get it open there, darn it, inside the pinhole for the piston. That'll do, and rub it around. All right, no jokes here. That's just what you got to do. Now, both are directional, so I'm checking to make sure I've got the rod pointing the correct direction, got the piston pointing the correct direction. Take my wrist pin, get it all slicked up. Wrist pin goes in, and that it's tight in the rod, so it hasn't hogged out the little end of the rod. It's appropriately snug in the piston, but not too tight. These are called buttons. They go on the end and to capture the wrist pin, and they then will be captured by the oil ring. So if you notice that the bottom ring land for the oil ring is cut at the same level as what the button is, so the oil ring actually holds the button and wrist pin in. So everybody's got a little different way they put their rings on. This is the way I put mine on. So I've got to start with the expander, and it's got a break point right there. So I've got to hold that as I take the bottom scraper and run it around. And now that's on, and I will move it there, and then I'm going to move this one, the upper one, and move it over there. So yeah, the basic idea is that you're 180 off. It doesn't really matter where you put them. They just ought to have them 180 off from each other, and I just have a way that I do it. And frankly, the main reason I do it the same way is if I pull the piston out and I can see if it's moved, if you put them wherever anytime, you don't know where it's moved because it's not the same every time. But this way, I can tell that if I want to. There's our number 2 ring. Here's our number 1 ring. So no, we don't use a ring expander to install rings. We do it all by hand. So now this guy is ready to go back into service. Okay, so that's kind of slick. So let's go back out here and see what's going on. All right, so we'll put this in our rack, and this is ready to go. All right, so I'm going to pause here, and we'll pick this up in a minute when we're putting these back in and show you how that works, but I need to get some stuff ready to go for that. We're back with you in a minute. Hey, we're back now. This is the time-lapse part because it should look a lot darker now than the last time you were here just a moment ago. We just shut her down for a bit so I could do my work on the rods, pistons, and rings to inspect everything and to clean the pistons up. So I just did some work to clean the scuff off, which is normal maintenance, and we're going to go back together. We're in the middle or the beginning of a windstorm here in Las Vegas, and so the wind's really picked up, so we took our awning canopy down, and they called the race for the night. And so we've already cleaned the motor, but we put these covers on it to keep all the sand and crap out, and we're going to pull them off now and see if we can get this rack installed quickly, but that's why these panels are on. So John's going to take them off. Oh gosh, that's heavy. All right. Now we're back on. So our sleeves are clean. One of the things you may be interested to know is that we will clean it with brake clean, and then as a final prep, we actually use ATF. ATF will do our finish cleaning, but the reason we use ATF is because it's got a detergent in it in addition to a little bit of lubrication, and it works real well. So I need my staff. Where's Anthony at? I need the paper towels that I took in there. I need that roll back out here. So we're going to start pushing this together, and I don't have my crew. Yeah, that'll work. So I need you down there to, he's got some for me, get this motor turned to whichever one you want to do. If you want to do 1 and 2, we need to get it turned to that position. So Chloe's going to the bottom to rotate the crankshaft so it's ready to accept. There's always just a little oil we clean up. So here's the way I do it. This is a ring compressor that's not adjustable. It's probably Captain Obvious, right? And we just take a little of our Freol, which was sponsored, but it's not now, but it was. And we like it so much, we kept buying it. Pretty good stuff. I get the hole here. But I do this because I want those rings to slide easily in the ring compressor. So that's ready to go now. And I make a mess all the time too. That ready. Okay, so now we're going to take the first one. I'm going to hand the rod cap to Chloe. There's the cap. And put my rod bearing in place. I can get it in here. Okay. And there we go. There we go. So now I'm going to take my assembly lube. This is just Torco assembly lube, but it works great. So I'm going to put that in the bolt holes on the bearing itself. So now the bottom end of the rod is handled. Now we go to the top end. I reconfirm that my ring gaps are where I want them, essentially 180 degrees apart. I'm going to do some assembly lube on the button, on the face of the piston, on the button, and on the back side of the piston. Okay, smooth it all in. Good to go. Now, back to what we call affectionately knocker loose, because when I was a kid, I was a little kid in the late 60s, the penetrating oil that we had was called knocker loose. Well, actually it was. Well, Chloe shows up here and told her that story, and I actually had an old can of it that Jerry Darian gave me. And son of a gun, if she didn't go down and find that they still make that stuff, and she bought me a can. It was pretty cool. Okay, so I've sprayed then the rings with that same stuff because I need them to slide through there easily. So got the lubrication where I need. I've confirmed the rod's in the right direction, pistons in the right direction, and we're going to tap it in place. So set down there and use, boy, you can't pull off a paper towel and think it's going to be there when you need it. It's about 7 pits that way now. This monsoon wind here, man, nothing's going to stay. So get my piston tapping tool, otherwise known as a rubber hammer, knock this down, and this ring compressor has a groove in the bottom that simulates the O-ring that the cylinder head has. So I'm just sliding this down easily for her. Gets on the crank journal, and I'm going to go to the other side and do the other one. Wow, wow, wow. Once we get this rack in, it goes pretty quickly from here to get the cylinder heads on. And they're all ready to go. So we've serviced, we've confirmed that we don't have any high leaks. In fact, all that vacuum testing we did worked really well. They're in really good shape. So we got them back together. Get Chloe the rod cap. And get my bearing. Something else just for trivia, when you run these things, this is a new bearing in this one, when you run these things, you've got so much pressure coming straight down from the top of the rod that it pounds on that bearing so hard that one of the traits of just running it, meaning it's not, there's nothing wrong, but is it will take that bearing shell, that half moon shell, and it will bring the ends in together. So it's part of normal work to maintenance it, to check that. And when you put that bearing in, like I just did, this again is a brand new one, but it can't fall out. That's one of the indications it's in correctly. If it wants to fall out, then those ends have come in and you got to fix it. That is not a cosmetic deal. We've lost a motor because a crew guy messed that up. What happens is if that bearing is in like that, the opposing one on the other side is not like that, and it begins to act like an oil scraper because they don't mate up correctly. That's bad. So there's that groove I was telling you about that lines up with the groove in the top of the sleeve. Don't want to drop my hammer on her. That was close. Okay, so it was on. Set it on there. Okay, here we go. Confirm the rod's in the right way. This is not, yes, I can't see. Got 4 it's a 2. Ugh. We're in the right hole. We're in the right rod. Okay, go down and seat it, tap it in, and it go in. There it goes. All right. Now, another thing that I think is interesting is the ring tension. My understanding, being the pro stock car expert that I am, which is a joke, I'm not, but I understand that with those cars, they're after every single horsepower they can get, and one of the things that they fight for in that along the way is to make sure that they've got low ring tension. So my understanding is those rings do not have high tension, which is precisely the opposite of what these are. These are massively high tension rings. So ironically, when this motor's together, even trying to just turn it over can be a bitch. After the run, when everything's warm, you get back here, and I've had crew people that thought the motor was seized up because it's hard to turn over. And we're using, grab that wrench. Let's show them our motor wrench, John. Just show the motor wrench we turn the motor over with. So this is, yeah, so we've got that much leverage, and you can still pull on that and feel like, holy crap, this motor's seized up. Well, it's not. It's just normal. Okay, this is an example I was talking about with that bearing. Now I dropped it. With that bearing, this feels a little too loose to me, so I'm going to open that up a little bit. Thank you. Open that up a little bit. Get it back in here. Feels better. You can feel it like it snaps into place. That's better. All right, just try to hang on to my. See, those towels, man, those suckers just want to go a long ways really fast. It's really windy. All right. So we got our assembly lube in the bolt holes on the serrations. Okay, good. And now, button, piston, okay, smooth it around, and then our knocker loose, or free all. Holy smokes. Hang on, kids. They said it was going to be really windy there, not kidding. It's nuts. Wow, I'm really thankful we got our canopy down. The awning rails are still up. That's what holds the lights and our air and our power and stuff. Derbs and another crew guy did a really good job on getting that all plumbed up for us a year or two ago. You've got to be set up to work efficiently. It's whatever you got to have, you got to have. And so we put a lot of work in that. All right, so number 4, bearing, piston rod, correct direction. And one of the challenges is, candidly, having the wherewithal to talk and sound moderately not stupid, which is tough for me on a good day, and to do the job right and not screw up. Like, oh my God. So it's easy to mess up. Okay, here we go. Tap in. It's in now, and I push down. But I'm telling you, I'm having to push down with an honest amount of pressure, and that's normal. That's what they do. That is normal. So back to the other side now. Trajan. See if I can hang on to my rag here. And move on to number 3, bearing, and give Chloe the rod cap. Yeah, there's rod cap behind you. And I try to make sure that I don't let any assembly lube end up behind the bearing on the rod itself. I don't want to encourage motion where I do not want any, and I don't want the bearing to spin in the rod, obviously. So I try to make sure that's clean. Okay, this is also not tight enough. So, and it's a used bearing. It's a good bearing, it's just a used bearing. It's no big deal, you just open them back up. And there it goes. All right, so now that's ready to go. Our assembly lube. Son of a gun. It is really windy. There, and I'm about out. So on our tune-up tray, We've got two sides. We got the same wrenches on each side. We got two assembly loops. So you work so hard on the logistics to get crap set up so it serves what you need, and this is a big part of it. Folks, I'm going to need some help, John. John, I dropped, oh, good Lord, never mind, she got it. You're good. Thank you, Chloe. You're good. Save my behind. So we got our assembly lube, get our freeall on the rings here. The bottom of these rods, it's like a knife. It's really sharp. So you got to work together on this stuff so that she can catch this and guide it up without it. You can cut somebody badly. I've seen that happen. Rod cap behind her. My bearing. And open that up. And bearing in the right direction would help. There goes that towel. See, I don't like the way that feels. I don't like that. So open that up a little bit. Get the oil off the back. And here we go. All right, now we'll rinse and repeat, just like shampoo. Assembly lube, buttons and piston. And we're going to go back down to the bottom of the rod, into the threads, serration and bearing. Smooch it around. And here we go with our freeall for the rings. It's hard to push that halfway. Okay, and hang on. Got rings going the correct direction, and rod and piston going the correct direction. You've got the valve reliefs on top, the exhaust side on the outside and intake on the inside, of course, and the piston will physically install backwards. The rod's harder to install backwards, having to do with the way that it made some of the crankshaft, but you can put a piston in backwards. Crap. This is hard to hang on to this stuff. This wind is nuts. So here we come down with number 5, and she's ready for it, I can see. And so I try to go down smoothly. You don't want to jerk it down there because she can get cut. I don't know how to hold on this damn hammer. It's so slick and windy. So back to the other side. There are gobs of teams here that are either at our level, alcohol level, top alcohol dragster, top alcohol funny car, or, man, that's crazy, or the big show cars, top fuel, who do exactly what I'm doing here, and there are many of them that would do it differently, whether it would be in a inconsequential way of style preference, how they do this or that. Some of them may do things very differently than me. I don't know. All I know is this is what I do. I put that bearing in and it felt good. You can feel it snap into place, and that's what I need to feel. So I didn't stretch that one because it felt good. Anyway, so what I'm telling you is the way I do this is not, I'm not representing this as the be-all, end-all or the only way to do it. As Mr. Darien would say, there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. The cat don't like any of them. So we just have our preferences that we develop. This is what I've done over a lot of years. Somebody taught me a long time ago, and I started doing it, and it worked. One of the things, though, that I don't know that everybody does is this penetrating oil in the rings. And the reason I do it is I want these to slide in easily. They're such high tension, and I'm trying to do everything I can to make it slide together well and to get through that darn ring compressor and not hang out. This is really slick on the inside, and it's anodized polished aluminum, but I've had it want to hang up before when I didn't do it this way, so I've been pretty religious about using the assembly lube. So it lets this crap slide through easier. So I'm just squaring it up, piston in this bore, and rod, piston, correct. Number 6, I still got to hand the cap to Chloe. There's your cap, kid. Yeah. She's been taught correctly. She's doing a great job. With that rod cap, there's some real important details. We tap this in, and we'll talk about that. So the ring compressor is squared up, piston coming down, and here we go. Man, that takes a lot of pressure, more than a person might think. Rod cap. What she's taught, as every bottom end person I've ever had, is that you want to do all you can to not allow the rod bolts to come out of the cap. And maybe I'll show you on one here. So this is a Bill Miller rod. So what happens is we turn this over and the rod bolt, hey, look at that, it falls out. And that's what we don't want. Exactly what I don't want. Now why? Why does it matter? Because the head of this bolt, it's slick. Head of this bolt here is chamfered. It's not at a 90 degrees, so there's a chamfer right there in the head of that bolt. It makes the bolt significantly stronger. The washer, if I can get that out of there, but the washer is chamfered to fit that. And if you get that washer in upside down, then it will not mate up correctly. If I can get that out of there. So it won't mate up correctly, and you'll have a gap between the bolt and the head of that washer. So they're designed to mate together, chamfer to chamfer. So we don't want the bolts to come out, because if they don't come out, there's never a question of whether the thing's in correctly, because it didn't come out. If it comes out, you got to stop and make darn sure it goes together correctly. So we hang on to the bolts, and even as you pick it up, if it's sitting like this, as we oiled it, it's sitting down, if I can simulate that, okay, then I teach them to rock it one way, grab one, rock it the other way, and grab the other, and now you've got the threads, and it won't come out. Something else that catches my attention here, she's torquing the rods on both sides of the motor. That's really hard to do, because as you're under there and you've got connecting rods that are going two different directions, well, the cap is facing one direction that works for you and the other direction that does not work for you at all. It's a bitch to do both sides. The way to do it is exactly what she's doing. She's smack dab in the middle. Well, the problem with that, it's not so bad here. This motor's been sitting for hours now. But if you run the car and you come back, well, crap, that thing's hotter than young love, and it's got really hot oil dripping down in your hair, in your eyes, up your nose. It goes everywhere that you don't want it to go. It's difficult. So I've seen bottom end guys that will have a hoodie they wear and goggles they wear to try to be able to get under there to do their job, and yet not be covered in oil. If you guys watch my podcast at all, please do. Gregg's Cool Kids Club. The second episode was with Garrett Bateman, a dear friend of mine. Drove my car early on. Drives a fuel car for Rick Hinkleman now. There's my bearing, there's my bearing. Trying to do 6 things at once here and tell you a story. Pardon me. But Garrett is maintainer of that A fuel car that Rick Hinkleman owns. And yet he is now working as a crew guy on Tony Bartone's Alcohol Funny car, whoop-ass car, that Sean Bellamere drives and does a remarkable job of. Well, Garrett is a bottom-end guy. Well, crap, when you get to that level, it's unbelievable how fast he is. I was just talking to him this evening. I said, how long does it take you guys to do the bottom end? He said, well, if I got my helper, he said, we're probably 20 minutes or so. Well, crap, they're doing all the rods, bearing in, bearing out, cap back on torque, and they're doing mains. They're doing 2 mains every time. Holy crap, that's really fast. So you get to where you work with your partner and you're in sync. You know what each is going to do, and it's just synchronized. It's really cool. So it's very impressive what they can do. Okay, I got to get Chloe the rod cap. Rag out of there. This thing's now losing weight as the rods and pistons come out, and that wind wants to grab it now. Holy moly. I have never installed a rack of rods and pistons in a gale force wind, if that's what it is. It's really stinking windy, whatever it is. It's nuts. So here goes number 8. And got to give her the rod cap. Hold on to the bolt threads. What's that cap for? Is that, oh, I got it already. Okay, so you got, never mind. See, trying to pay attention here. Thought that you had a rod cap for another one, but she's correct. So I need my hammer. And Here we go. Tap her down, push down, and that's in. Okay, one more. Go to the other side, and we got one more. Sometimes I wish there was 2 or 3 more because you use a little more power, but that's all they give me. So that's what we got to work with. One left. Numero 70. Okay, so back to the same program here. That is a new bearing, so that should not take anything. So we will clean it up. Do not get oil on the back side. Clean. Bearing. Snapped in. If you heard that, but snapped in, that's good. That's good. Assembly lube. Into the rod bolt threads. When I learned this early on, this is kind of interesting. Learned from Wayne Parker, Randy and Russ Parker's father, good man, who taught me a tremendous amount when they were when they had their alcohol funding car. Was pointing out that there's a hole on top where that rod bolt comes through, so you can get to the top of it. And there's multiple reasons for that, but one of them, ironically, is the way that at that time, the way they were doing the connecting rods was not just simply torquing them as we're doing here to 90 foot-pounds, by the way. There's another method. Torque is not, and I don't present myself as the world's fastener expert. I'm not. I'm just repeating what I've been taught over the years. There's people a lot smarter than me, lots of them. But they're not on this video, so tough crap. So what we did, though, is kind of cool. The torque is not really the issue. The issue for a fastener is that it's stretched to the proper amount, and if it is, it will hold in place. It's the stretch that holds it in place. So the torque is designed to achieve the proper stretch. That's the goal. Torque isn't the goal, the stretch is the goal. If you over torque, you overstretch. If you overstretch, it may stay that time, but when you take it out, it won't return back to zero. If you understretch, it's not enough to hold it in. So the stretch is the issue. Well, guess what, sports fans? He had a stretch gauge. So you go down and you torque it to X, but the number wasn't really the issue. It was, he knew at that time that X foot-pounds, and you'd zero the gauge out before you torqued it, and you put it on afterwards, and you'd see that it stretched at 7 thousandths or something, whatever the number was, but that's close. And that was enough or not enough. And if you need a little more, you torque it a little more and see if it got to 7 or 8 or whatever the number was. It's really slick. That takes time to do that. I don't know anybody that does it that way anymore, but I learned a lot from Wayne. And that was one of the things. Here we go, and then we're going to be done with this. All right, coming down. Man, that's a lot of pressure. Holy smokes. And we're done. We now have a rack in. As soon as she gets that torqued, this will go get cleaned up and put away. And then we're on to gaskets and cylinder head. So I'm going to end this one for here. And we will, wow, that's a cool jacket. Holy smokes. We need one of those. You see that? Look at his jacket. That needs to be a team jacket right there. Is that rabbit or is that chinchilla or mink? I don't know what it is. It's probably not real. It's cool. So this is going to go away and get cleaned. And we'll put our head gaskets on. Not giving anything away here, but Vegas, we had the thinnest gaskets on we could do, which is why our valves were touching our pistons and pistons touching the head. We're going to thicken the gaskets up just a skosh to go to Pomona because we won't have the high density altitude that we had here. Trivia, a lot of the lifters in the first 2 motors I had were 1-inch diameter lifters. That is not what these are. These are 1.8 inches. They're even bigger. So they're really stout. They're really nice. The problem is you start running out of room in here. So crap, trying to get all this crap to fit. You've heard the story about the 20 pounds of crap in the 10-pound sack. Well, this is a lot like that. They do fit. Obviously, we've run the motor, but sometimes they can be really persnickety to get them in the dang hole. And that one falls right in, making me a liar, but some of them can be an absolute bear. But you just kind of run out of room. There's no more room to put. Yeah, there's crap off the track or road out there getting in our motor. There's not much room at this point. Cleanliness. It is so important to keep your motor and working stuff clean as you're building a motor, because whatever is in there is going through it. And we've pulled bearings out with big grooves in them. Something went through it. We don't know what, but you can't do that. I mean, in a perfect world, you want your stuff to be just surgically clean. So as we deal with lots of wind here, we're going to keep going and get this thing together. Thank you for checking us out, and we will keep going and get this thing together. We'll see you in Pomona. Now we're going to... The question is, do we want to continue the video and show you guys us putting the heads on, and I guess we can. Oh, that's the point. He's right, and that's why it's hard to do this. I'm showing you guys putting the lifters in, and the point is that the heads, there's no room. When you put the cylinder heads on over the gaskets, there's an inner head stud that goes right through these. Well, when that inner head stud's in there, these lifters are so damn big, you can't get the inner head nut and washer on with the lifters in place. So he's absolutely right. So I got sidetracked there trying to show you guys these big old lifters. So we will pull those back out. But we're going to put cylinder heads on now, and we'll get ready for Pomona. We'll catch up with you there and hopefully show you some more stuff. Thank you for liking and following, subscribing. It means a lot because we appreciate you guys being here. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Sisters, thank you so much. We have come so far, yet we have so very